Hi, my name is Richard Schlitt. I'm here to talk about the subject of business as mission. Let me first introduce myself a little more fully to give you background as to why I'm addressing this subject. For the last 40 years, I've lived in East Asia. I've just returned to Canada. I've just taken up the role of National Director for OMF Canada. While I was in East Asia, the last 10 years in particular, I was overseeing the work that we have in what we call missional business. Business as mission, the same thing. We have a specific reason for the term that we've chosen, and I will explain that as I go through this presentation. But in our context in East Asia, missional business or business as mission became a very necessary part of the work that we do. And I want to explain that and present that to you now. I had hoped to be with you these days in Halifax. That just became impossible, as we know, because of the COVID-19. So we accept that this is the way we'll operate, and we trust God to bless it, and I trust that what I present will be helpful to you. So let's just think about mission a little bit more widely before we address the whole topic of business as mission. So mission, as I understand the term, as I use the term, is taking the gospel to another people, and in particular taking the gospel across cultures. That would fall within my mission definition. Through scripture, that was there. Jesus sent his apostles out. When Peter and Paul were discussing an issue at one time, Paul says very clearly, Peter, you went to the Jews, I went to the Gentiles. So there was a focus, and Paul was taking the gospel across cultures to the Gentile people. Paul reports back as he's writing to the church in Rome, in Romans chapter 15, verse 18. Paul says, I'm telling you about what Christ has accomplished through me in leading the Gentiles to obey God by what I have said and done. So Paul's approach to mission was more than words. It always had a doing part, what I have said and done. Mission and missional business are two interlinked pieces. Missionary support is something that's necessary for missions. There's a range of ways that missionaries can be supported. Some people look to business as mission as a means of support. I want to say today that it is much bigger than that. That may be a component for some people, but business as mission is much bigger than that. But we do have Paul's example, where Paul used his work as a way to support himself. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 9, Paul says, we work night and day in order not to be burdened to anyone while we preach the gospel of God to you. So there was a period of time in which Paul used his income stream, his way of earning income, which was a leather worker. We call it a tent maker. And Paul used that to earn so that he wasn't a burden. So that is a subset, we might say, of business as mission. But I would argue that the subject is much bigger than that. There's issues that we face in mission, in cross-cultural mission in certain parts of the world that have made us look very deeply into this issue of business as mission. In many countries of East Asia, it is very hard to go into the country, and you absolutely cannot go into the country as a missionary. And that has caused us to look at other means to go into the country. And so we've been sending professionals into these countries. They've been doing anything from teaching English to being a professor of any topic in universities, to development work, to business. There's a whole range of means that we've used to go into those countries and to bring the gospel, the good news of Jesus. Some of our people did work in NGOs, in development agencies. As countries develop, the need for the development agency reduces. So there was countries in East Asia where we were doing large amounts of development work. We had agencies set up as development agencies. We did it with great integrity. But as the country developed further, that need was disappearing. And we had to ask ourselves, what else should we be doing to be in this country, to be serving this country, and to be bringing the good news of Jesus into the country? So a lot of agencies have looked very deeply at the whole issue of business as mission. When we think about business as mission, we see it as a very valid approach to mission. We see it as an absolute need in countries that say no thank you to missionaries. In fact, not only no thank you, no missionaries allowed. But Christians are okay. Business is a good thing. There's also countries that are open to missionaries where we are also asking the question, might business be a good means to go into those countries, even though missionary is possible? And I will try to address those questions as well. A key question we have to ask when we address this whole question of business as mission, a key question we have to ask is, what does the country need? It would be foolish for me to bring to a country something the country didn't need, or something the country wasn't looking for, or something the country was already doing very well. Why should I compete with local people to do something that they're already doing well? What does a country look for from outsiders? Now, interestingly, some of our countries of East Asia, and of course, East Asia is the area of the world I'm most familiar with. I spent 40 years in East Asia. There's countries in East Asia that actually post, these are the kind of foreign experts we're looking for. And it'll range from business to different kinds of expertise. That's excellent. If the country's telling you what they're looking for, then the question is, can I be that thing that they're looking for? But we must bring it with integrity. And so into this whole area of business as mission, I need to address this issue of integrity. I have seen missionaries pretending to be business people, doing business badly, and bringing discredit to the name of Christ. That we don't want to do, and that I want to warn against. If business is the thing we're going to do in a country, we better do it with excellence and with integrity. And I will be making that point in a number of ways. We also should be seeing ourselves as nation builders. We don't just come in to bring the gospel and try to build church without thinking about the well-being of the nation. Interestingly, as the Jews were in exile, and Jeremiah writes to the Jews in exile, he makes this quite interesting statement to them. He says, also seek the prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you also will prosper. And I believe Christians and cross-cultural workers should be thinking not only exclusively about bringing the word of Jesus and seeing people place their faith in Jesus. We need to be thinking about what is good for this country. How do we develop this country? How do we help this country to develop further? And I believe that is an integral part of Christianity. So the part of the world I'm familiar with, East Asia, running from Mongolia down to Indonesia, and literally everything in between, if you have that map in your mind. If you have that map in your mind, one of the ways to look at that map is to recognize that within East Asia, about 80% of East Asia says, no, thank you, missionary. We don't want you, either for political reasons or for religious reasons. We don't want missionaries here. And yet we believe God is calling us into those places. So to go into those places, we say, what can we bring with integrity that nation needs? And business is one of those. I could address other issues, but business is the one that I'm addressing today. So this condition of countries saying we don't want missionaries actually puts us in a very good place to consider business as mission as one of the approaches. Now, what is business as mission? There's a number of definitions. I'm taking a definition here out of a book called Business as Mission. The writer's Neil Johnson, and he writes, it is a for-profit commercial venture that a Christian is leading. It's intentionally devoted to being used as an instrument of God's mission in the world. And it's operated in a cross-cultural environment, either domestic or international. So it's integrity Christian. It is business for profit. And it is intentionally set up to be an instrument that God can use. So as I said, there's a lot of context in the world where this is one approach that we need to consider, because other traditional approaches are just no longer possible. Now, I mentioned tent making, and some people say, well, tent making and business as mission are the same thing. Okay, I would say tent making may be a subset of business as mission. But tent making, if we take the example that Paul was giving us, Paul was, he was working so that he wasn't a burden to the local people. He was working for his income so he could eat. He was supporting his team so that they could eat while they did ministry. That was his tent making, his leather working. I am talking about something that could include that, income for sure, but something that's a lot bigger. I'm talking about going in and running a business that earns a profit, running a business that hires local employees, that enables them to earn a living, that uses the business as a means to engage with the local people. So that's different than the traditional tent making. As I say, overlap, but different. So there's a few other definition things that we need to think about, because I've heard people talk about business for mission. I've heard people talk about business is mission. And both of those, I think, have weaknesses, and I would want us to think more widely than that. Business is mission. That's the concept that if I go in and I do business and I improve the livelihood of people, I have fulfilled the Great Commission. And I would personally say, no, you have not. You've done a good thing. You've done a kingdom-minded thing. But until people recognize the King and bow to him and enter into the kingdom, we haven't adequately brought the kingdom of God. So just doing good business, as good as that is not what we're talking about when we talk about business as mission. Business for mission, there's groups that use business to earn money to give to mission. Very good thing. Still different than what I'm talking about here. So business as mission, and I'm going to quote here from the Luzon Occasional Papers. The Luzon organization has done occasional papers. One was on business as mission. So their occasional paper number 59, it states, business as mission is not simply a fundraising tactic, nor a visa platform, but it's a relevant strategy for the 21st century, especially in a 1040 window. So catch the critical things. It's not a fundraising strategy. It is not just a way to get into the country, but it's a whole strategy to bring the good news of Jesus while doing business. What made me look more closely at this? I was overseeing workers within East Asia, and one of the workers was working in just an incredibly restrictive country, and I'm intentionally not naming the country here. Incredibly restrictive. As the person came out of the country and we had a chance to talk, he said, I was inside that country that we've been trying to get into, finally got in. I'm in with a local partner or with another foreign partner. And the government official said to me, your partner is corrupt. Why did they say that? Because in the eyes of the local government officials, this other Christian business person would start a business, the business would fail. So he'd set that aside and start another business. And that business failed, and then he goes on to a third business. And maybe it succeeded, maybe it failed. And the government officials said, that is corruption. He is deceiving his financial backers. He's just consuming their money. Now, we might have said, wow, how entrepreneurial, how great that he just tried one thing after another until something finally worked. That made the lights go on in my mind. What we do needs to look right in the eyes of the local people. And so just being entrepreneurial and trying things actually is a poor testimony. One of my concerns is that missionaries often are not trained in business and therefore frequently do business badly. And that's a bad testimony. So what we have had to do is we have had to bring coaches and mentors alongside the missionaries to teach them how to do business. If doing business badly is actually a poor testimony of Christ, then we need to teach our missionaries to do business well. And part of doing business well is earning some living. One of the things we faced recently as our businesses came under scrutiny is government officials said to our business people, your lifestyle exceeds your income. So in many of these countries, every year they have to submit their books, and the government can see what the investments are, what the income returns are. And the government officials looked at the books and said, something's wrong here. You're traveling in and out of the country, your children are in an international school, but your income doesn't satisfy that. I don't believe you're a valid business person. You're actually a missionary. And again, bad testimony, because we're trying to bring the gospel with integrity as a Christian person. So business as mission needs to earn a profit, and it needs to earn a reasonable profit, a profit that the local people look at and say, yep, that makes good sense, a profit that the local business people are going to try to take over your business space because they see that you have a new concept that's actually good. So business is about earning money, it's about providing jobs, building up the local economy, and all of this to the glory of God. And inside that context, you share the good news of Jesus, because being a business person puts you in contact with people that you may not have been in contact otherwise. And that's why I'm saying this is even an acceptable strategy in countries where you can still get a missionary visa. But there are segments of that society that the missionary cannot get in contact with, but the business person can. So using the business as mission, entering into that segment of society, working hard, and you will work hard, but being in contact with people in ways that they can understand and bringing the good news of Jesus in that context. That is my defense for business as mission. Access is a critical key. So the business as mission gives us access to a subset of a culture that we can be a missionary, but we can't get to that subset, or sometimes to a whole nation that says no missionaries, and we don't need development. Good business, we welcome good business. So that allows us to go in, but we need to do that business with absolute integrity and with excellence so that they continue to welcome us. And we make sense in their mind. In many countries, the foreign national comes in and they're seen as a paid propagandist. Somebody paid you to come and bring your Christianity here, and we don't want it. But if a Christian does business well in that same country and rubs shoulders with the local people as he or she does business, the local people say, we understand you and we're watching you. We're watching how you do business. When we think of business as mission, we have to think of multiple bottom lines. We don't just talk about we're there to make money. We are there to make money. That is one of the important things that we're going to do. But we also want to help the communities in a number of ways. So there is the economic bottom line. There's a social. We're uplifting the community. We should be thinking environmentally. Are we strengthening the environment? Are we running a business that's actually destroying environment and bringing shame to the name of Christ? And the spiritual. We're there for the spiritual. May the Lord give us wisdom to use this means that the Lord has put in our hands. Thank you.